Just to give you a personal perspective, I had left on a plane from New York about 45 minutes before this happened. So I was probably flying over Manhattan when the accident took place. We were grounded in Detroit. It was feeling all day. And the deeper question then for me was, why didn't I feel like that when bombs were dropping over Bosnia or Iraq? Why didn't I feel like that when horrendous acts of violence every day happen, of the fear and the hatred that gives rise to this kind of terrorism? Why are the United States, more than any other country, the target of the world's wrath, or are people suffering all over the world? I mean, face it, Canada, Australia are affluent Western countries, but somehow they manage to stay out of everyone's way.
Is this what you mean when you say we have to do more than simply try to track down and punish the perpetrators of these crimes, that as an individual and a society?
I think we have to recognize that each of us can really make a difference, and I mean this not metaphorically, but totally in a real way. Thought of yours, every act of yours, every word of yours will either add to the wounding of the world or the healing of the world. We're inseparably connected, and we're inseparably one. Now, even quantum physics says when a particle vibrates, the universe shakes. When an electron vibrates, the universe shakes. So, in a sense, we are all collectively responsible for the deep rift in our collective war against the Soviet Union. You fed us, you armed us, you trained us.
These kind of hard questions invariably cause us to look deeper into ourselves. And the natural response to tragedy, and we're seeing it right now, is you're seeing many people becoming more spiritual. I mean, the reports of churches being full. Others, in turn, say, how could God let us down? What kind of vengeful, horrible God could allow this to happen? What do you say to people in terms of the spiritual?
Has failed. Economic power has failed. Military power has failed. People with Stone Age weapons that come from countries where they don't have running water and ride camels and ponies manage to paralyze the United States and destroy its symbol of military power and economic wealth. So we have to know that economic wealth, military power, political clout, diplomacy have all failed. What's left? There's only a spiritual solution, because that's where creativity comes from. And, if we can't say, how did God allow this? Because when we say words like that, we go to a very primitive idea. People are saying it's religious fundamentalism, but actually, if you look deeply at religion, all religion, it comes from a very tribal background.
The apprehension and anxiety we feel about the future, obviously presents an emotional toxin. We'll talk about what that is in a little while. But it obviously affects us in a very, very deep way. How should we be dealing with that terrible sense of dread that hangs over us right now?
We should not deny it, first of all. We should get very intimately in touch with this sense of fear that is actually the underlying emotion, even beyond the people's calls for retribution and vengeance and hatred. Feelings, we feel them as distinct sensations in our body. And in situations like this, they lock up either in the gut or in the area of your heart. Once you felt them, then you identify them. In this case, the identification will end up with fear as the underlying thing. Fear about your safety, about your loved ones, about just your economic well-being, etc. And then at some point you've got to express your fear, and the best way to do that is to yourself. And most psychologists now tell us is to yourself. And most psychologists now tell us that if you journal and express your emotions, but just by writing them to yourself, and once you've done that, you share them with your loved ones, and you try and alleviate each other's fears. You release them through some ritual, and then you engage literally in helping each other. One of the best ways to get rid of your own suffering, by the way, is to help somebody else's suffering. And, because we are so inseparably linked to each other.
And we're seeing lots of that now.
Yeah, we're seeing lots of it.
Yeah, you're trained.
Rumi, he says, I have lived on the lip of insanity, wanting to know reasons, knocking at the door. The door opens, I've been knocking from the inside. And all of science has made the mistake of knocking from the outside.
Rather than the inside.
Right.
Well, and you
Right
have
now called biologicals because they mimic the internal pharmacy.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're feeling anxious, your body makes adrenaline and epinephrine and cortisol, which have certain effects. When you're feeling tranquility, your body actually makes diazepam, which is Valium. Even your platelets make Valium. When you're feeling exhilarated, your body makes immunomodulators like interferons and interleukins, which are powerful anti-cancer drugs. So there is an inseparability between what is happening in your so-called mind and what is happening in your so-called body. In fact, they're inseparably one. One is an objective way of looking at it, the other is a subjective way of looking at it. It's a selective act of attention and interpretation. So by changing your perception, you actually change your physical body.
This is mind-body linkage again.
Again, it's the structure of your body that changes by changing your interpretations. And the fact is, when I say 10 steps to reverse aging, for example, I don't mean that metaphorically. The fact is, you measure biomarkers of aging as a good measure of aging. There are things like blood pressure, bone density, basal metabolic rate, fat content. Sexual energy is the most powerful energy in the universe. It is the creative energy of the universe. So when you feel passion or interest or excitement or vitality or energy or enthusiasm or inspiration, these are actually the different flavors of sexual energy, because nothing is alive in the absence of those qualities. And at the primordial level, it's sexual energy, which is the creative energy. You and I wouldn't be here talking to each other if it weren't for that energy. By learning to pay attention to this energy, even enliven it more than it is, because usually it's hibernating. You know, what happens when somebody's losing their health and vitality? The first thing that happens is they lose their sexual...
Exercise every day. What time do you go to bed?
I usually, last few days I've been traveling and going on this book tour, and all the horrendous things that have occurred have interfered with my going to bed at 10 o'clock. Usually I go to bed at 10 o'clock. Wake up at 4, that's 6 hours. It's plenty for me. I feel totally revitalized.
That's enough for you.
More than.
Now, we all know that we shouldn't be putting physical toxins in us, tobacco
and high cholesterol, or perhaps in some studies even more. The other toxic emotions are fear, anxiety and fear, guilt and depression. These are all lead to the same physical toxicity. And the way I deal with them, Dr. David Simon's a neurologist who's my partner.
Yes.
And the way we deal with this in our center is we allow people to actually understand the origins of how not dealing with pain when it is occurring leads to the build-up. Love is the best anti-aging medicine. Studies show that if you watch Mother Teresa on television, your antibodies in your saliva go up. And Mother Teresa is good for you, and she's hugging children with leprosy, and she stimulates your immune system, even on TV. So if you take rabbits and you feed them diets that are high in cholesterol, but if you cuddle them, the cholesterol gets metabolized into a different metabolic pathway. So yes, love not just as an emotion, which is very important, not as just a sentiment, but as the ultimate panacea. There's nothing that love cannot conquer, even the vilest of fear and hatred. And in the book, I talk about the 3 most important components in the exchange of love. They are appreciation, attention, and affection. Attention is the ability to listen to somebody without interrupting them and actually experience what they're going through. You don't have to do anything, just listen. That's attention. The second is appreciation, which is the ability to tell someone in a genuine and sincere manner the good qualities that you see in them. And affection is loving touch. We are totally deprived of it in this culture.
In terms of just touch?
It was about half of that, 80 or 90. Then he went to Gainesville, Florida. It was 2. Then he went to England, and he waited and waited, and nothing happened. And now you can actually correlate this experience of loving touch with the demographics of atherosclerosis. When you touch somebody with love, or you even get a massage, and there is the
Things
flow.
like cranial sacral massage, and this is
Craniosacral, or there are many kinds of massages, shots.